Hey everybody, Zee Garcia here, and today we're going to be gathering resources, hiring the right help, and messing with each other a little bit in Havana. In this game, you are going to be gathering pesos, you're going to be gathering building materials, and hiring various characters in order to collect all these things and then spend them in, trade them in to make buildings. You're trying to race to a number of victory points. If you are the first one to make it there, you are going to be the winner. It's a game which has a lot of different characters, sort of a Citadel's style game, if you happen to know that very, very popular game. But you've got your own deck of cards. You've got the same ones as everyone else has, and depending on which ones you've got face up in front of you, how you utilize them, well, a lot of that is going to influence how well you do in the game. Let's go ahead and take a look at the game on the table, and I'll see you on the other side. Here we're taking a look at the game setup for 2 players, though most of it is basically the same. This setup with buildings in the middle will be basically the same, randomized buildings out in the center. And then this supply over here of resources that were pulled from the bag, and 4 pesos there in the supply. Then we've got the stock over here with the extra pesos and these workers. And then everybody has a hand of cards in their color. You also begin with 1 resource and 1 peso in your own personal supply. So everybody selects 2 cards. We're going to reveal those cards. And each of the cards has an ability and a number at the top, okay? So let me go ahead and flip these around like that. I don't think you'll be able to see them, but just for the sake of clarity here. All right, so the phases of the game are broken down into 3 steps. So there's 3 different phases in the game, and everybody has 2 player aids right here to help you figure that out. So the very first thing is carry out the 2 actions you have in front of you, and then purchase buildings, as many as you want, if you can and if you want to. Phase number 2 is supplies, in which we restock this area right here, or if there's anything left there, we just add on to it. And then the third phase, everybody selects a new card and plays that out. So the first one, and a lot of what happens in the game, is going to be played in the order of the totals that the players have in front of them, from the lowest number to the highest number. You put your 2 cards in front of you so that they make the lowest number possible. In this case, 24, not 42, and this player has 49. So the yellow player here is going to go first, and then you do the actions on your cards. So for example, this one over here says debris, and it says take all the debris. Let's take a look at it. Take all debris from the middle of the table, okay? Well, the debris are all the gray cubes. There's blue and red and yellow and brown. Those are all building materials. But debris is these gray ones. So take all the debris. Okay, they do that. And then this architect says, take 1 worker from the stock. So take 1 worker from the stock, put it in my supply as well. The architect has a secondary ability which says the architect is needed to construct certain buildings. And you can tell those because they'll list what's needed for them, and then the architect card is printed there as well. These all list what's required and then a number of victory points in the game. And this game is played until a certain threshold is met and you finish out that round. For 2 players, that's 25 points. So I've gone ahead and done my 2 actions over here for the yellow player, and now I may purchase and build as many of these buildings as I can and want to. So for example, I can return a worker and build this one right here. This is not going to be replenished immediately. I'll just put this aside in my own score pile. As soon as any one of these lines, and you can only buy from the outside in, so I could have purchased that one I just purchased, and now this one's also available, and this one and these 2. And as these are taken, as soon as we are down to just 2 tiles, then we spread them out like this, and we replenish them from the buildings that have been set aside, okay? So it doesn't really matter how they were placed, but let's go ahead and put them back. Something like that. All right, there we go. So that player is done. Then we do everybody else. Again, everyone in that numerical order. This player is going to go. They have here an architect, same thing. They take 1 worker, so they'll take the worker. And then this Mama card says take half of the debris and half of any other building materials from the middle of the table, rounding up respectively, okay? Well, they can take this one. and there's no debris anymore. So they're going to go ahead and take that. They're done. Now we come to phase 2, which is this replenish phase in which we add supplies. And it says we place 3 building materials from the bag into the middle of the table. And we add 3 pesos to the center there. There we go. And then the final step is placing a new action card. And here's the way that works. Each player, again, in the same order, is going to take a look at their hand. And they are going to select a card, such as this one, and they are going to place it over one of the 2 they've got here. So I might do that. The other players don't know what I added yet, but they know which one I covered. And then this other player might do the same thing. So this player might do, let's take a look. They're going to do, which one? They're going to do this one right here. And they're going to cover up that one. There we go. Now they are all replenished. You discard the card that was underneath it in your own discard pile. And then we rearrange these to make sure we have the smallest number possible. So now this player has 24, this player has 28. They will go first, and they're going to go through these phases. Take all the debris, great. And then over here, take one worker. This is an architect. Take a worker from the supply. And then they can buy buildings. So, now they're not quite able to afford that. Can't quite afford that. There's also some conversions that are important to remember. The 5-to-1 swap rule means you can spend 5 pesos for a worker. You can spend 5 debris for any one colored building material. And it's just, you spend 5 debris and it counts as one of those. So you have to remember that if you get a lot of debris, that can become colored building materials. So they're done. This player will do the same thing. Debris, well, it's gone now. And then the pesos, it says take half of the pesos from the table, rounding up. So they're going to get 4. And then perhaps they can spend those 4 and buy this one here. And this continues until, again, somebody gets to the necessary threshold for victory points. That's the way it works. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these cards, so you have an understanding of the kinds of things you can expect to see. Because there's some meanness in this game. There's some interactivity in the game. So we've seen these. You've seen the architect. The mama card you've seen already. We've got here the black market says take random building materials from the stock, meaning the bag. If you're the first player to trigger this card in the round, you pull 2 things. After that, anybody who triggers this card pulls 1 thing. Materials thief. Take 1 piece of building material from a following player, somebody after you. If they have more than 3 colored things, you can steal 2. If no one's after you because you're the last player, then you just pick anyone at the table. So there's that one. This is a worker here that says take workers from the stock. If you're the first person to trigger this, 2. Anybody after that gets 1. This one here is a number 1, so it's going to allow you to go quite early, but the only thing it does is return any 1 card from your discard pile into your hand. This is how you're going to get these cards back a little more quickly. We have a number 2 here that is called protection, and you are protected from all of the tax collectors and the thieves during your turn. You cannot be stolen from while this is in front of you. We have here the siesta is a 0. So if you have this out, you're going to have single-digit numbers, right? So like a 0 and an 8, that's just 8. But this has absolutely no action whatsoever. It just helps you to go early in the turn. Conservation here, immediately remove any 1 building from the end of one of these rows. And that's only possible once per turn. So you can, remove this till you can get to the next one. Tax collector, take 1 peso from the stock, remove 1 worker or 1 piece of building material from each following player. So if you go with this early, you're going to be hurting people. And then this pesos thief is similar to the materials thief. Take half of a following player's pesos rounded down. If no one's after you, just pick somebody at the table. So there you go. As you can see, quite a bit of pushing and pulling, of taking away from other people. You have to be careful that you're not looking like a juicy target. And if you are hoping to gather up quite a bit of resources for something very strong, then you might want to put that protection out there so no one comes after your stuff. So that's the way the game works. That's basically it. All of these buildings are just variations of what you're seeing here with the different materials, different workers, and pesos, resources. This one actually takes debris, so you want to keep your debris for that one. 7 victory points, but it costs 9 pesos. So there you go. That's all there is to Havana. Let's go ahead and go back up top. Let me tell you what I think of it. I've got a soft spot in my heart for Citadel's style games. That is, games that have cards, which are characters, and those characters have some sort of power. Maybe they're drafted, maybe you are that character for the whole game, maybe they cycle in and out, doesn't really matter. But I love that in a lot of games. That's one of those things that always makes me a little more interested to jump into a game if it has this kind of quality to it. Havana definitely has that. Of course, you have 2 characters in front of you, or up to 2. Sometimes you have a card that just does nothing. But 2 characters, and you always have to cycle one out, which is very interesting. At the end of every turn, you have to pick someone new to come in, someone to go out. And so that central core mechanism is an interesting one. And there's a lot of other interesting things about it, though it's not a game that's perfect. Let's talk about it. We're going to start with the theme and the setting. I like it quite a bit. I think it comes across in an interesting way. I like the personalities on the cards. I like the buildings, abstracted though they are, of course. They don't mean anything. But I like the setting and the feel of the game, the way everything works. The general sort of, I'm not sure who I can trust thing kind of works too for me, so I like that. The aesthetics are very good. I like the iconography on the tiles, on these tiles here. I think it's very clear what you need. It's like, everything, you can tell everything you're looking at a glance. I do think the cards, a couple of them have quite a bit of text on them, but there's not that many. You'll internalize what they do very quickly. Ideally, these would have what they do and then a graphical representation of what they do. Many card games do that these days. It doesn't, but it's fine. They are clear, and they're they spell out what they do, and they are clear. And the cardboard quality, the cubes, everything just looks good. The cardboard money tokens are good, sturdy, no problems there. I also like the artwork. Replay value is okay. The thing about the replay value in the game is you cannot, in this game, specialize in something. You cannot, for example, say, I'm going to go for money. I'm going to go for big money. Well, that won't work. That'll work for that building, which takes 7 pesos, and this one, which takes 6 pesos, and you have to have the architect out. But there's not that many of these, right? There's not that many of, you can't specialize in the helpers, the workers. You can't do any of those things. You have to do a little bit of them all. So from play to play, you'll do the same things in a different order, but you'll largely do the same things. As far as scalability, I think the game scales well, though there is a very different feel from a 2-player game to a 4-player game. There's a lot more a lot more having to worry about where you fall in the turn order with 4, right? There's going to be plenty more to concern yourself with. Playing a high number is a great reward if by the time your number comes up, those things are still available. So I think that's neat, and it brings to the forefront one of the more interesting mechanisms in the game, that numerical system. So that works well. Just be aware it's a slightly different flavor from 2 players to 4. Okay, game arc. There's more chaos with more players, so be aware of that. Some of that, take that. And then also in the game arc, since you're just shooting for a total number of victory points, you can tell who's ahead and who's behind. But there's no building up. Having one of these in front of you and having 3 of them in front of you and having you closer to victory isn't any different. They don't do anything else. They don't give you permanent abilities. They don't give you any further discounts. None of that stuff. I would love to see, this is not going to happen, but I would love to see some of these that do something besides give you some points, right? So, if this building cost, 5 pesos and the red building resource and the architect, but then over here somewhere it said minus red cube, and every time from now on you always have a 1 red cube discount towards anything else you build. That's awesome, because then you do feel like you're getting better. You're doing more, you have new abilities, and there's an arc there, a progression of, man, I'm getting better at what I do. This game doesn't really have that, okay? It's not a big deal, the game's not that long, but it does hurt the game arc a little bit, especially if you get hosed a couple of times in a row. Again, very apropos to Citadels, a game in which, with inexperienced players especially, folks might get hosed and feel like this game is just mean-spirited and isn't working out for me. I could see that happening here. The ease of play is very high. The game is well explained. Rulebook does a good job giving you everything you need to know. There's a breakdown of all the characters in the back right there for you. 2 player aids per player. Fantastic. I love that. So the whole thing looks and works very smoothly. No issues. Lastly, tactics, luck, strategy is good, because I do think there are interesting things here. While that build isn't there, there is fun planning in the game. There's fun manipulation in the game. You can, at any given moment, look at the board state, the supplies, the building line, what folks have in front of them, and have a plan. It's a very reactive game, so there's a lot of tactics involved in it. But there's always something to think about, to possibly manipulate. The ability to remove a tile from the end of a line and buy the next one is cool. The ability to foresee where you think you'll end up in turn order and who you might be able to steal something from, or if you're very early, you can take from the center and then whoop, whoop, turn around and buy things with that. And so there's a certain push your luck. Like, do I think 23 puts me in first place? Looking around the table right now, maybe. First or second? Is second okay? I think second will be okay still. Those kinds of considerations. So the cadence in the game and turn order is so important. I think it makes for a fun, tactically rich, engaging experience. You're always sort of abreast of what's going on. It's not a game you can kind of check out and play without looking around the table. So, again, I got a couple of issues with the game, as you saw there. Game arc, the replay value. But I find the experience engaging. I find it fulfilling. It's a quick game. It's a game that does not outstay its welcome. And the characters are neat. I love that. I love cards with characters and they do something. The really, really high numbers do great stuff. You know, the low numbers, not so much, but they let you go sooner. I like those things. So for me, this is going to get a nice, solid, round 7 out of 10. That means Havana here. There's my lid. It's going to get a seal of approval. And I do enjoy it. This is one we had not reviewed on the Dice Tower channel, and I wanted to go ahead and do it. Hopefully, maybe you've seen it somewhere, and hopefully this is helpful to you. If you ever come across a copy of Havana here, hey, you might just want to give it a try. So there you go, 7 out of 10. Once again, seal of approval for Havana here. My name is Zee Garcia. Thanks, everybody, for checking this out with me. I'll see you on the next one.